Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Live's Falcons vs. Broncos Week 11 post-game show. Subhead, we talk about that game so you don't have to, is what we're going to do today. Although many of you, of course, are talking about it in the comments. We do appreciate that. Thank you guys for staying awake through that stinker to come hang out with us on Falcoholic Live, which, probably going to be much more fun, I think, than the game itself. So we'll have our group therapy session here as we talk about that absolute demolishing that took place in Denver, as the Falcons were completely throttled for all four quarters en route to a 38-6 defeat, where the defense gave up 3 first-half touchdowns, I believe 2 of them which the receiver was not even covered, and then the offense proceeded to shoot themselves in the foot on 2 straight potential scoring drives, coming away with 2 field goals instead of 2 touchdowns, and that was all she wrote. The Broncos never looked back, and the Falcons never ever got in scoring position again, as they got their asses thoroughly kicked by Sean Payton's Broncos, who look really damn good. So, good for the Broncos. But Falcons come out completely lifeless in this one, Alan. Obviously not feeling great about the game, but how are you otherwise?
The biggest highlight of this game, Young-Ho Koo, still professional NFL kicker.
Yeah. Hit a 51-yarder and a 40-yarder. That's probably the only good thing, is that, like, Koo is 2 for 2, and you're like, okay, well, that's great. Good for him. But other than that, not great.
I mean, it's just great. The year of 2024, and Sean Payton still dunking on the Falcons. You think after, 15 years of it happening?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. That looked as about as hopeless as a game could get, just from, I think, we against the offense, but it was going to be a long day for them, just given the game flow. Like, we had a feeling Kirk Cousins going up against a collapsed pocket. And I didn't think the offense line played that poorly. I thought at times they held their own. But it's just Denver. They're deep, they're relentless, and their secondary, they matched up really well against the Falcons receivers. And it's just, they really need to get the ground game going to have any chance. And it's just the defense couldn't force it. And look, we could talk about injuries, but I want to pull the card. Like, you guys are professional athletes, you should play better, but you kind of are professional athletes. But like, just some of the mistakes are inexcusable. The tackling, just the complete lack of resistance over the middle of the field. Like, it must be fun to play starting quarterback against the Falcons defense and know when you're throwing an intermediate area of the field, as long as Jesse Bates is around, it's going to be complete 99% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's how
they don't even contest throws. They barely contest anything. It's all wide open. And like the breakdowns in coverage were just everywhere today too. I mean, just nobody knew where the hell they were supposed to be. Guys were just leaving. I mean, those 2 touchdowns, guys just not even covered. The first touchdown, the guy left the backfield and nobody even picked him up. So it's far more that I don't think this is one that you just blame on injuries. I think this is a complete failure defensively from the coaching standpoint too. I mean, this is inexcusable how completely lost everyone looks in coverage. And you can say, oh, well, Natrone Brooks, he was just brought up off the practice squad. He didn't even get in the game until late in the second half. So it wasn't like, I mean.
And he was making plays.
He was. Yeah. He was the only one that looked like he gave a damn. So shout out to Natrone Brooks. I thought he should have started the game in nickel. Like, I can't believe they had Kevin King out there.
I think it's even more alarming. They were playing Richie Grant there. Like, I was thinking they only have 2 healthy corners, but I'm like, wait a second. Natrone Brooks is active, and he was a part of that, which I'm sure we'll have a 5-minute rant on. This probably the worst call of the year. That to me was worse than the Kelsey one, because the third foot was even close.
No, but that was a terrible. Not that it mattered at all. Unfortunately,
it didn't matter at all. But Jesus, like, how do you allow that? That was terrible. Yeah. The one pass in the intermediate field that got contested and that was an incompletion to everyone's eyes except that officiating crew. Like, Dean Blandito was appalled by it.
Yeah,
so
that's a wild one. Yeah,
it's safe. But yeah, I think there's so much you could get to coaching staff, and I bet fans will look at it this way, and I could totally understand their point. The more you think about it, it's just that kind of response after such an emotional loss to your biggest rival, where it was embarrassing. Like you lose to a team that's 2-7, just fired their coach, biggest rival. It's going to go down as an embarrassing loss just for that angle. And then this is how you respond. Fans have every right to feel infuriated. We all are frustrated, but this coaching staff, players got to do some serious soul searching, because even though this team was undermanned, you just can't go down like that against a Denver team that is talented, but they got their limitations.
Yeah. Denver's like good. They're clearly on the upswing. They should have beat the Chiefs. Like,
Yeah.
That it's crazy that they lose that game, but that's not an excuse for this. I mean, like, yeah, Denver's good, but like, are you saying that you're like the worst team in the NFL, that you gave up a 40 burger and put up 6 points? I mean, it's not even just the defense, but we'll get to it. I gotta get to this ad read before I forget, like I did last time. Don't want to have to edit this back into the beginning of the show. That's gonna take like 30 minutes that I don't want to spend. So, guys, have to get to our sponsor, of course, Bet Online, folks. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform. Your number one source for online betting, from the earliest odds to in-game live betting options. BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to bet on the games while they're going down, which I personally, you smash. I think after the Falcons go down like 14-3, you probably smash that like Broncos money line. But other than that, I don't recommend, betting in games, but it's an option for you at BetOnline, where they've got the largest selection of odds. Everything from football, college football, NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC, MMA, you got it. They probably had odds on the Tyson-Jake Paul fight, which I hope to God you didn't bet on, because that looked questionable at best, but if you could even see it on Netflix, in the first place. But no matter what you want to bet on, guys, head to Bet Online today to get in on the action. America's most trusted site for online wagering. Make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right. We got Solaire with the $2. Says, draft takes, here we come.
Oh.
Yeah. This team isn't for real. I mean, look, I was called, I don't know exactly what I was called by a 92.9 radio personality. I think he just said I didn't know football when I questioned the Falcons, not being that great, like being kind of mid so far. I just want to, I guess maybe don't just assume the team is the 2016 Falcons, I guess is what I would say. Because that was the argument that I was a hater for, questioning this 6-4 Falcons team, because the 2016 team was 7-5 when they went on their historic once in a franchise history run to become the best Falcons team of all time. Probably don't hitch your wagon to that happening again ever in Falcons history. That would be my, advice to you, radio personality. But at the end of the day, Falcons come out, look like dog shit. And I just hate it, man. People act like I'm happy with that this team is bad, or that I want to like dunk on this team. I don't at all. I want to watch this team win football games. I want to talk about how good they are. I want to talk playoff scenarios, playoff picture, but we can't, because this team is 6-5, and I think they could be 6-7 before we see another dub. Like, that's how bad they look today.
You know what's even more frustrating is the fact that you have to justify yourself. Like, you've been doing this for so many years. Like, the fact that you still have to like defend yourself in these scenarios. Like, look, we are objective. We are looking at what we're seeing on the field and watching film, reading articles. Like, we're doing our own research. We're trying to figure out what this team is made of. So anyone that's critiquing, we want any person that thinks like someone that's covering team wants someone to fail. It's just like, why would we want a team to fail? Like, it's 2017 was the last time this team was in the playoffs. Like, we're starving for football content in January. You think we like writing about coordinators and potential free agent signs? Like, no, when you're covering a team, like, you want to write about playoff games. You want to write about exciting matchups. So the fact that people are getting your case about that is frustrating. I hope you have to defend yourself again, because people should know who you are and what you've done. So nevertheless, it is what it is with that personality. But as for the team, man,
yeah. I don't even know where to start, man. You covered the one nice thing, which was that Koo got back on the horse today, which is nice to see. Because we're all cheering for Koo to get back to it. But I don't really have anything else. Yeah, go for it.
The defense is just, look, I know there are other men. There was times like you saw Mike Hughes and DL for a miss. There was like a third down where everyone went vertical, and I think Vale like sat on the route and there was nobody near him. Like, there was definitely some communication breakdowns, but there's just moments where you just see in the middle of the field. And look, at this point, he's not playing hurt. Like, Nate Landman's a liability. Like, I think we defend Nate Landman enough, and I think he's fine in terms of maybe playing the box or first, second downs maybe. But whatever the difference is between Ryan Nielsen and Jimmy Lakesky, which there are obviously clear differences in coverage, but I don't know when it comes to, like, I like to do more research on it. Like, when it comes to, like, you can't really say pure rundowns, but like on early downs, like, what are the differences against the run? Because Landman, similar to Kane Ellis, was an enforcer last year. He was a true tone setter, and you're just not seeing that against the run. I mean, because Onyema's not taking on blocks the same. We're seeing guys get pushed around. Obviously, Gray Jarrett's not the same, but there's times in this game, like Nate Landman, especially on the the touchdown run with Javonte Williams, where he just takes a horrific angle, and Quinn Myers just bulldozes him out of the way. And it's just their front looks hopeless at times. And you talked about that day's gonna come with Onyemata and Jared. At this point, barring them taking a significant pay cut, there's no justification for keeping either of them because they're just not offering enough right now. I think their name value far exceeds the substance or the product on the field right now. And I know it hurts to say because both those guys are awesome. And obviously, look, Jared's a franchise legend. No denying that. But it just, this front repeatedly gets blown up week in and week out. And, you're looking at teams cover like the Chargers and Vikings, and it could even get more uglier.
Yeah. No, I mean, to me, it's like at a certain point, like if everyone's having a down year, then it's probably not just the players that are to blame, because the chances of Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, Matt Judon, like having career worst years all at the same time, like it can happen. It's not impossible, but I think it really starts to come back to maybe the coaching and the scheme is not working at all. I mean, we've questioned a lot of stuff about this scheme, how they're playing up front, how they refuse to put a nose tackle in the game up until like last week.
Light boxes.
Yeah, they stubbornly play nickel against every personnel package. It doesn't seem to matter what the opponent trots out there. They're gonna play nickel, including Nate Landman. Wow. Late Landman.
Late Landman.
That's his alter ego. Yeah,
that's almost as good as Brooks Teed.
Yeah, I love Brooks Teed. Great guy. But no, it's like I think it's at a certain point you have to point the finger at the coaching staff. You can't just blame, like, if it's happening to everyone, it can't be them. Like, it can't be a coincidence that everyone's playing worse. Like, Terrell's playing worse, D'Alford's playing worse, Jesse Bates is playing worse, Justin Simmons isn't able to do much of anything because, I mean, I love the pictures of him 20 yards off the snap on 3rd and 7. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, these guys don't even have a chance to impact the play.
I like that you point out Bates. And look, Bates made 2 great plays in coverage, but both screens, he was completely out of position. And there were times where he was more trying to punch the ball than tackling. I understand he's kind of playing, as Adnan said so eloquently, hero ball, which in this defense, they shouldn't even play hero ball. But there's moments where you just got a clean tackle. And you saw on the Javonte Williams rushing touchdown, he just goes for the punch out and doesn't even really make an attempt to tackle Javonte Williams. So he definitely needs to be critiqued there. But yeah, like besides James Smith-Williams and Zach Harrison, like who has really improved this year? And those 2 guys are just like contributors. Besides that,
they barely play Harrison. He had like 5 plays in this game, and I feel like he's been limited to 13 snaps every single week this year, like because they're rushing to get these practice squad guys on the field, and I mean, I have a lot of issues apparently with how they're handling things.
We even mentioned Ebike's another one that hasn't progressed at all. So you just look across the board. It's just when you like obviously defense regress, but when you're trying to pinpoint players like who's really improved, you're kind of gasping for straws. And I think that's where his defense is. And at this point, the whole question was like, are they going to be a credible playoff team, or are they just a product of the NFC South? And right now it looks like they're just a product of the NFC South. And look, they got 2 games to rectify. I say, if they could at least win one of those 2, it's big. If they win both of those, is great. But if they lose both to the Chargers, Vikings, like, okay, this team we're just right on the NFC South. That's it. It's like,
no, like I think I think the odds will say that the Falcons will be underdogs against the Chargers and Vikings.
Yeah, those are 2 certified playoff teams.
Yeah. So like I wouldn't be expecting to win those games. And if you go down to 6 and 7, your lead is over. Like you are no longer in the lead. The Bucs are probably tied with you at that point. I don't know that the Bucs lose another game. Like their schedule is a joke the rest of the way.
They play Chargers.
That's it.
Yeah. Look, I think there should be expectations for them to beat the Chargers because they're going to have a bye week. They're going to get guys healthy back. Like when you have a bye week, it's going to show a lot of what your coaching staff is made of. And look, Harbaugh is one of the best game planners, and can't imagine what. By the way, Justin Herbert looks a lot more athletic this year. So I know we got focused on the Broncos game.
It's a great dynasty trade for me, getting Justin Herbert. Yeah.
It's a daunting challenge, but I think when you're a team that has playoff aspirations, you're going to be back home, and you're going to have extra weeks to prepare. And I think the Chargers are going to be playing the Ravens too. So it's just things should slightly go into your favor, even though it's not really in your favor. But it's just, if this team really wants to put themselves up in the upper echelon, which clearly they're not right now, but where they see themselves as a real credible playoff team, then you got to win one of these games. You got to beat actual teams, because other than the Eagles, they haven't really beaten anyone. Like the Bucks, the Bucks are a very respectable team, but they are arguably have the same worst defense type vibes as the Falcons.
Yeah. Like, they're playing better offensively than the Falcons are with their starters. Like, the Bucks are down both their receivers and cobbling it together with backups, and the Falcons' offense is worse somehow. Like, I mean, I don't even think it's a Zach Robinson thing. It's just like this offense is just incredibly undisciplined. Like, they just screw up over and over and over again.
Yeah, you have moments like where Drake London with the legal shit that's like, it's just the attention to detail. And look, London's a stud. But just when you have this defense where there's no margin for error, it's like you can't make mistakes like that. And next thing you know it, they're like, second and 20? And I guess that Broncos defense, that's the last thing. And Bergeron had a bad hold. As well as Bergeron's play at times, I do think the penalties are starting to accumulate. Like, I don't know how many penalties is off the top of my head, but it seems like almost every game now he has a penalty. And look, it adds up. You want to see him clean up his game. You hope they get Drew Dalman back after the bye week. He's gonna have extra time to get back.
He was active today. They just
he was
play
active.
Him. Yes, they just didn't play him. Like,
more bizarre.
He was activated off IR on Saturday. He was active for the game. They never put him on the field. So I don't know what the hell's going on with that. I mean, they didn't say anything the entire game. The crew didn't even mention it. Like, the announcers never mentioned it.
It's bizarre, because like you look at those inside runs, I feel like they had the running game didn't do much there, but by inside runs, Denver was swung up every time, even when they were trying to run duo.
No, Newsel got absolutely demolished in the run, and that's really he can't run block, but he's a respectable pass blocker, and that's enough to get him a roster spot. Like, I mean, look, like if you
he's been admirable. It's just,
I think he's earned like a long-term backup stay here in Atlanta. I think he's more than fine as your backup center. It's just like he can't run block. Like, he's just not effective. He can get a hold of guys. Like, he can maybe hold his own sometimes, but he's not giving you anything in the run game, really. And they really needed Dalman to jumpstart the run game this week, and they just didn't put him out there. No explanation. I mean, maybe someone will ask in the post game, like, why wasn't Drew Dalman playing? Because Ray Moore said, if he's healthy and if he's active, he's the starter. And then, he's not. He's active. He's on the sideline, presumably, and he just doesn't start. So, is that why they lost? Probably not. But it is wild that they set that up and everything fell into place health-wise, and they still decided to keep him out of the lineup. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But at the end of the day, it's like, the defense is the one that obviously, like, everyone's gonna be like, wow, like, this is, a really bad defense. They look like the worst defense in the league. They're just leaving guys wide open. They're not contesting throw. Like, that, there was like that 3rd and 9 in the red zone. They didn't even touch the receiver. They didn't even have a chance to get to him before he picked up the first down. They were so far off. And like, the Broncos just ran a couple of routes, and that pushed the corners even further back. It was like, man, like, you guys aren't doing anything to contest this game. Like, it's that easy to manipulate this defense. It's that easy.
And you talk about last 2 minutes in the first half. We saw in the Seattle game. We saw today. I think the Thursday night game against Tampa as well. Like, there's just some very troubling tendencies with this team. And I tweeted this out, that since week 5, this team has allowed 17 points or more in the first half against every opponent except Dallas. So it's just, I'm tired of hearing about, this coaching staff's great at second half adjustments, but it's just, you can't live off that. Like, at some point, you have to start the games with some sort of urgency. And it just seems like time and time again, the offenses have their way. And I think one of the biggest talking points, I definitely want to get your opinion on it, was Mark Ramundi tweeted out that great stat that, well, not great from a positive standpoint, but very noteworthy stat. A stat that's going to be thought-provoking, that's going to bring up a good conversation like this that we could talk about. It's the Falcons not bringing any pressure on 21 dropbacks for Bo Nix in the first half. What'd you make of that?
Yeah, I think it was a complete basically admitting it to themselves that they weren't going to be able to get any pressure on Bo Nix and that they were just going to hope to play coverage and limit the damage. But then the coverage was god awful. Like, they would just leave guys completely uncovered. They would drop 8 and leave guys completely uncovered. And it's like, well, you can't do that either, I guess. Like, if you're going to play coverage that bad, you might as well rush 8. I mean, for God's sake, if you're going to play that bad on the back end.
Do you think they did it to compensate for the cornerback issues? The fact that they only had 3 healthy cornerbacks and we're only playing 2 for most of the game?
I mean, I guess so, but it could be that. I don't really know. I mean, I think it was, I'm sure no matter what they did, it would have been awful because the guys that were back there didn't know what to do. They looked totally lost in coverage. So I'm not sure it would have made any difference if they rushed 5. Maybe they get a little more pressure, but I'm guessing the thought was if they blitz, that Nix would just take off. Like, he would escape and take off for big gains. And he probably would have. I mean, honestly. Yeah. So, because Nate Landman can't move. So, like, he did have that nice open field tackle, but he missed, like, 3 other opportunities in coverage, like, before that. So it's like, yeah, great. Like, if he could routinely make that play, chasing down the running back to the sideline and make a tackle, like, then that would be fine. But he can do that, like, once a game at this point. Like, most of the time, he just gets embarrassed. So, I mean, I think it's just every level of the defense looks worse. Like, Bates is having to freelance and, like, basically desperately try to come up with turnovers because that's the only way they're going to stop anybody. Justin Simmons is playing so far off the line of scrimmage, he can barely impact the play most of the time. The corners are all lined up, 10 yards off. And, they all look lost in zone. Like, they're still making basic, like, handoff problems. Like, they can't. They're not handing off the receivers. Like, they're just, they all just follow the same guy. We're 11 weeks in, Allen, and they don't know basic concepts in their zone coverage. Like, I mean, I get it if it was like Natrone Brooks making mistakes or like Kevin King making mistakes or whatever. It wasn't. It was Clark Phillips. It was Clark Phillips making these mistakes most of the time. So, like, he's been out there with the starters practicing. I guarantee it. So,
and he plays every week. He might not get extended sense, but he's played every week. And he's played like the end of the first half snaps. Like, he's played significant moments. So I don't want to hear about lack of experience. Another player that should be highlighted, who I just don't. There's no justifying even him being on the field anymore, despite the death. But Richie Grant's a walking liability. He's another one. You just watch him play.
He came on
missing tackles
2 plays. He made 2 plays in his first 3 plays. I was like, oh, maybe we'll get a good Richie Grant game. And then he just proceeded to just blow like 5 more plays after that. Yeah. So yeah, there's no
always
you can't,
that position coverage, missing tackles. It's just, I don't know what he adds at this point. So it's like guys like him and Landman. It's just, these are players that's why, going back to the conversation about them not bringing pressure in the first half. Well, I can understand you want to protect your secondary, but then it's like you're depending on Nate Landman and Richie Grant to cover space, and that's just not working. So why not just go for broke? But even though, look, Denver's offensive line is one of the best units in the league. Like, a lot of metrics showing that. I think Quinn Myers is stud, McGlinchey's good, Bowles is really good. Like, they built a really nice offensive line. So I can understand their approach, but why not run more simulates? Because the one time that I could run them running a simulate, Caden Ellis got free on a twist. And it was about the only time that Bo Nix got pressured in the first half it wasn't a result of him tripping on a lineman. Because remember, he tripped on McGlinchey that led to Judon getting a sack, which you got to fill up that stat sheet, Matthew Judon. I get it. But besides that, I think they could have been more creative with their pressures. But we've seen it then again, time and time again this season. It's just whether it's simulades or blitzes, a lot of it leaves a lot to be desired. Like, you see the pocket, nothing's getting collapsed. It's just a bunch of guys there. Nothing's being stretched. There's nobody looping around. It's just a bunch of guys right in the B and A gap, and nothing's happening. And then the quarterback could go outside the pocket, and you see Bo Nix double pump faking it and then hitting Cortland Sutton over the top, and AJ Terrell gets caught face guarding. And it's just those moments. Like, there's just no pressure plan when you have no pressure plans at defense. It's like you're hopeless.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of, like, they are already not great at getting to the quarterback. But when you give up free passes, like free short passes, essentially, with the coverage that you play on most snaps, there's, like, if you do get pressured, they're just going to throw it. They're just going to throw it to the guy that's left wide open intentionally by what you're doing on the back end. Like, I assumed we signed Justin Simmons so that they could pull him up closer to the line of scrimmage and let him lurk there and try to create some turnovers. But they're basically playing him as a deep safety, like with Jesse Bates back there, and it's like he just doesn't have much of an impact. Like it's like, okay, like Jesse Bates has the range to still make some crazy plays back there, but Simmons doesn't anymore. He needs to be closer to the action. That's just one example, but like we saw this team was one of the most man-heavy defenses in the NFL last year, and they up until the end of the season, they were playing good defense. It wasn't great. It wasn't like top 10 level, but they made it work. They contested a lot of throws, and they managed to create some pressure, creatively up front. And this team basically chucks all that out the window to go to this cover 3 heavy, like, simulated pressure stuff. And lo and behold, there's no pressure and no one's playing zone well. Like, what do you know? All the guys you brought in to play man coverage for Ryan Nielsen are having a hard time transitioning back to zone coverage. Like, it just looks ugly. And we're 11 weeks in, and these guys still can't play basic zone concepts. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here?
And if you remember last year, a lot of times, like, Jesse Bates would be the deep line safety, and then they had either Richie Grant or DeMarco Helms either play in the box or play man-to-man against the tight end. And look, Jacksonville's going to be making some moves soon. I don't know when, but they're going to be clearing out their coaching staff. So maybe a certain man with a very lovely mustache is going to be available. Maybe get him into a consulting role back in Atlanta. Imagine that storyline. Ryan Nielsen gets just picked up, kind of like what Robert Saleh is doing with Matt LaFleur right now in Green Bay. Could you imagine where he gives Ryan Nielsen a call after Jacksonville cleans house tomorrow? Yeah,
right. I would, but
that might save the defense at this point.
They won't. No. He wanted nothing to do with this coaching staff. He was like, nope, I'm out.
That was reported?
I mean, I don't think it was reported, but it was not reported, for the record.
Okay.
But like,
I just thought Doug Pearson gave him an opportunity. He's like, all right, I'm taking it.
I'm guessing he didn't want to be here, because I don't know why the Falcons would be itching to kick him out of the building after what he did the previous year. So this is my opinion, for the record, that I don't think he wanted to be here with this coaching staff. I think he wanted to leave. So, well, who knows if that's true or not. But the vibe was bad with his exit. It's like he's coming off the best defensive season for Atlanta in like 10 years. What, maybe since 2017 even? Mm-hmm. Or maybe before even statistically. And he just leaves. Like, so, I get the feeling that either he wasn't wanted by the coaching staff or he didn't want to be here. And I think both are bad, either way you slice it. Like, if you're itching to kick, Ryan Nielsen out so you can bring in Jimmy Lake, I think that's clearly a big mistake if that was the way it went down. But one way or another, neither one of them wanted to make it happen enough for it to happen. So, throw the blame wherever you want. But
Jerry Gray's in all of this, because obviously he's a very respectable defensive backs coach. I wonder what kind of impact did he have at this point, just because it's just every play, it's like 6-8 yards. It's like it's bound to happen. Like it just seems like a formality at this point. Like we get complained about everything that's happening within the trenches and just the run fits, and Anima can't take out blocks the same, and the linebackers are in the wrong gaps. But just you really thought the secondary could carry this unit, and even though they had the depth limitations today, the stars were there. And Clark Phillips was expected to take a leap this year. So you still had the core over there, and just no impact plays whatsoever outside of a few moments from Bates.
Yeah. It's just an ugly game, really ugly.
You want to get to listener questions? Or, or you want to talk about Cousins? I feel like Cousins, we haven't really talked about him, and we shouldn't really let him off the hook, because once again, just when the pocket collapses, like he was just throwing some really awkward angles. Did you notice that?
Yeah. It was just weird, man. I don't really know. It was.
He just refuses to move his feet. Like, we're not asking him to scramble, but like, slide to your right, shift a little bit. Like, even when the pocket was collapsing, he just stood there like a statue and would just throw the ball up. And that interception, like, what was he thinking there?
I don't know what he was thinking, because that was one of the most ill-advised throws I've ever seen. He threw it right to the linebacker. It's like
Cody Bart was running the crossing route.
Yes, like that's the thing, man. Like Kirk, I think we're overrating Kirk's season because of what he did to the Broncos twice, or not the Broncos, the Bucs twice. Outside of those games, he's been super mediocre.
let's give him credit for the Eagles game.
Yes, Eagles game. That was a heroic finish.
I think he was outstanding against the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys, he played pretty much a flawless game.
Yeah, that team's a joke though.
Oh, fair enough. Look,
yeah,
yes,
he did play well against the ghost of the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I thought both Saints games he was decent, but I look at this game, I look at the Pittsburgh game as a huge red flag. I thought he was fine against Kansas City, all right, Seattle, he was best. So all right, there's 3 games you look at this year. This one's Seattle, and also the Pittsburgh game where it's just rough. But I don't think we should run with the narrative that besides the Tampa games, because that Eagles game was big.
It was the Eagles game, all the credit in the world, but that first half in that game was ugly, and he came back. Yeah. And I just feel like they are just so inconsistent offensively. It's like they either go off or they look like this. That's what last week it was like this. The Seahawks game it was like this. The Chiefs game it was like this. They're either great or they kind of suck. And if they get behind, Kirk Cousins starts pressing, and it's over. He just will throw it right into the coverage. He will just lock in on Drake London. And for a vet, he should know better than to do this. Especially you just can't have that. And combined with his inability to move, it's just disappointing to say the least. They absolutely need him and the offense to carry this team, because the defense is disastrously bad at this point. If these guys aren't back from injury, this is going to be the worst defense in the NFL going forward. So, they desperately need this offense to carry them each and every week, and it doesn't look like they're capable of doing that.
And we got also monitor Mooney's injury, because Mooney's such a integral part of this offense. He's explosive. Even though, another highlight from this game, that Kadero Hodge moment, he is so crafty with the ball in his hands. It was so slow, yet he pulled it off, making 3 people miss. He's a valuable contributor, but without Mooney, they don't have a vertical threat. So that's definitely something. They don't have Mooney for a Chargers game, then all right, I'm with you. I don't think they can beat the Chargers on Mooney. I think he's that valuable to the team. But that Hodge play, and one moment for Kirk, we gotta mention, is the motion with Bijan, and then it was just kind of I don't think it was a wheel route. Maybe it was a wheel. I don't know. You remember the motion, and then he just goes to his right, and Kirk hits it perfectly in stride on time. That was probably one other play where I was just, wow, okay, Kirk might be dialed in today.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just even when he's playing well, the rest of the offense fails. You get dumb penalties, you get holds, you get drops, you get missed blocks. They just they play.
Mooney was fortunate.
Yeah,
Mooney was fortunate with that drop. That drop should have went for a pick 6.
Yeah,
that was another one.
6. Yep.
Yeah. So we gotta pinpoint. We gotta call that out. But I think we talk about the lack of concentration, lack of attention to detail. It's all understandable. But I wonder, coming out of the bye, start running the ball, get 30 times a game. I really think. To get more favorable looks made for Cousins. Obviously, play action doesn't get affected by the run game, but at least try to punish these teams, control the clock more. Because I think time possession through a lot of these games have been an issue with the Falcons. And at this point, this defense, you don't want them on the field. Well, you don't want them on the field, period. But you don't want this defense on the field more than 28 minutes at this point. I think that's the new set. If they're playing more than 30 minutes, this game, they're probably going to lose.
Yeah, no, I mean, this defense has gone from questionable to absolute liability in the span of 2 weeks. And giving up what they did to the Saints, as undermanned as they were, should have also been a big red flag. And again, what I think I saw the stat, they've given up 17 or more points in the first half every week since week 5 now. They just get dominated in the first half. They come out with their hands in their pants. They're just completely flabbergasted by what the opponent's doing every single time.
Yeah. By the way, that also includes a game against Andy Dalton and the Panthers.
Yeah, so, it does. Yeah. So
it's just everyone, once again, coach staff loves to rave about their second half adjustments, which is all fine and dandy, but until this team starts better in the first half, it's rather meaningless, because you get these slow starts, Kirk's going to start pressing, you can't control the game with your ground game. It's just a problem. So that's why I think Drew Dalman's return is so valuable, because we know how much difference maker he is against the run. And I think they're able to be more creative with their run schemes as well.
Yeah.
So They really need him back, and I think they just got to start getting in the position where Bijan gets close to 20 carries. Algier could get maybe 6-8 times a game. Or run a sweep of McLeod, maybe get someone else good going creatively. But if they got to become more of a run-first offense to compensate for the defense's just complete deficiencies, that might be the winning recipe.
Yeah, and I think it's like there's a lot going on with this team. Like, I mean, I think, you look at like this. I think that the Seahawks game is a great example. That Seahawks team going into that matchup was down 3 starting corners. And they dominated the Falcons defensively because they had a pass rush. They could cover up their secondary problems with their pass rush. The Falcons have no pass rush. They have nothing in the pass rush. They have the most embarrassing front that I think I've seen in some time. And that's even considering some of the Falcons teams of previous years. Like, this is a historically bad pass rush.
They're worse than the Arthur Smith's first year. And that team had like Steven Means playing 550 snaps.
Yes. So like, this whole scheme was like, we're going to simulate pressures and we're going to be able to create stuff, with that. And they're not doing it. Like, I know someone in the chat mentioned it. Like 3 weeks ago, we saw Caden Ellis use on like 50% of his snaps as like a line of scrimmage player or a blitzer because they kind of recognize that, hey, maybe he's not that great in coverage. We should just have him pass rush because that's what he's best at. The last 2 weeks, barely pass rushed, like a handful of snaps in each game. It's like, you see this, it works, and you just throw it out. Like,
I do wonder if game flow affect that, because that was the Dallas game where Dallas pretty much had to throw the ball in every snap. The last 2 weeks, unfortunately, the Falcons have been playing from behind. So they got to start playing from in front to allow at least more opportunities for Ellis to be unleashed. But I do understand the frustration. He should be used there more because other than maybe one moment in the first half, I can't really recall Ellis being used as a blitzer. So maybe with Troy Anderson, hopefully he gets healthy. That could open more things up because at this point, if you want to look for defensive solutions, and I know we gotta get the listener questions, because we want to get it, but we have a lot of thoughts to cover chest.
No, yeah. But you guys have some good questions too. I don't want to.
But like, if you want to look for like one besides like a whole scheme overhaul, which is at this point it's a dream. But if you want to look for what could be changed, like Troy Anderson coming back at least gives them some hope because then teams can't feast across the middle of the field as much as they are.
Yeah, no, they need him so desperately, and like he just aggravated his injury. And they said he was going to play this weekend, and guess what? He didn't play either. So this
bye week, man. That's it. I'm just gonna keep saying bye week.
It's like we can't trust a word they say anymore. Like, they were like, oh yeah, Troy's gonna play, doesn't play. Oh yeah, well, if Drew's active, he'll be the starter. Is active, isn't the starter. Like, I just don't believe a word they say anymore. Like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like,
I'm trying to think what coaching staff was like this. I think Arthur Smith was good with injuries. Dan Quinn was good. Maybe Mike Smith was a little iffy with injuries.
They're just, I don't even remember. Yeah,
I think Arthur Smith and Dan Quinn were pretty good with injuries. I don't remember anything too good. But with Raheem, it's just like, it's just unpredictable, and I don't know, man. It's unfortunate. But let's get to listener questions. We've been going for
yeah. All right. So thank you guys, first of all, for toughing out this game and then coming here to hang out with us. We do appreciate that. If you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing too while you're at it, that would be a big help.
Yes.
Helps the channel in a big way. Thank you guys so much. We got George Costanza. What's up, George, with the $2? He said, this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde shit is driving me insane. This team can look like world beaters and then get taken to the broom shed by rookie quarterbacks. Levis literally had a career day against us. He hasn't done anything since. Surely you can't be serious. Unfortunately, I think they are very serious, George. So it's terrifying. It's a terrifying fact, but yeah.
Tell George that Will Levis got a Mayo commercial. I never seen a quarterback least qualified to get a commercial, but whoever his agent is, that man's doing great business, or woman is doing fantastic business because Will Levis, of all people, has a commercial.
Yeah, it's really just the weird mayonnaise in the coffee thing. But look, you got to cash in while you can. You know, the NFL stands for not for long for a lot of guys. So,
there you go.
Yeah, but I think I had already forgotten the Will Levis game. But I remember it now, so thank you, George. We see Gary Stafford with the $10. Thanks, Gary, man. Appreciate you. Says, I would easily trade Koo's field goals today for two of his misses, for the two misses last week. Yeah, me too. I think we all would. They really needed that Saints win. I think that Saints win, that loss that could make the difference for them at the end of the season. So I'm interested to see if that ends up actually costing them a playoff spot. The Saints will be like celebrating in the streets if that happens. And you let them do that, Falcons. So no one to blame but yourselves. We got George Costanza with the $2 says, the optics of moving off Grady Jarrett, I just don't think Arthur Blank's going to do it. He's a second-generation Falcon. But the pass rush is the problem. It's the only problem. You don't have to have an elite secondary if you can get to the quarterback. Yeah, I mean, with Grady, more than likely they're going to try to work something out, like seeing if he'll take a huge pay cut or something like that. But I think business-wise, you can't justify him making like $22 million or whatever it is this year. Like, there's no way. Or, well, I mean, next year. This year, it's a lot too. But next year, it's a $16 million savings. I think he's making over 20. You can't justify it at all. There's just no way to justify that contract. So it was kind of always going to be this way when they kept like pushing the money further down, like that it was probably going to make it untenable to keep him after a certain point. But, you know, I thought if he had a bounce back year, he could still stick around. But I think at this point, like we're looking at a total defensive teardown. And I think that includes Jimmy Lake if this doesn't get any better. Like I can't see why they'd commit to keeping him around if this is the product that's on the field. Unless, you know, I personally can't get behind it if that's the case. So, you know, we'll see. All right, we got George again with the $2. Thanks, George. Say the Patriots got their revenge against us. We robbed them with that Mohamed Sanu trade, and then they got us back with Judon. It's a hustle. Also, I'm back on the Kyle Pitts hate train. What a joke. Then again, jokes are supposed to be funny. Well, I guess I didn't find Kyle Pitts' game that alarming. I guess I was more occupied with the overall failings. So I guess I'm not like when he ran too fast into that coverage and made that catch really difficult. But like, you know, Kirk should have thrown that ball like a second earlier. Also, he was under pressure. So like, you know, I guess I'm not really, I'm not focused on the Pitts thing. Yeah, he should be more involved, but like the whole offense was just absolutely terrible today. No one was like, they weren't able to do anything offensively. And I don't think Pitts could have been wide open downfield, and I don't think they could have got the ball to him because Kirk was just getting absolutely demolished in the pocket pretty much every snap. So it was bad.
There needs to be a better plan to use him. And even as a blocker, like it didn't matter because they converted on 4th down, but there was a 3rd and 1 where there's still 11 personnel, which it's like it's 3rd and 1, but they're like in a condensed split. And we've seen time and time again, Ray McLeod is just not a good blocker, and he gets beat by McMillan. And it goes for no gain, and then force the Falcons to go on 4th and 1. Just like, look, Pitts, he still could play wide receiver. Obviously, you'll want him playing every down there, but like, why not have Pitts in that scenario to block? I don't think it's a whole giveaway. Like the fact that this team's so fixated on having 3 wide receivers 90-95% of the time, it's like, why not have Pitts blocking on a 3rd and 1 there if you're gonna still want to play 11 personnel, you know, with 3 receivers? It's just those moments, like once again, attention to detail, and like time and time again, Ray McLeod has been probably the only liability as a blocker, as a receiver, and you know, it's just once again those moments, and there just needs to be a better plan to get Pitts more involved, because I thought there was some real progression in October, but I think ever since the Cowboys game, he's been a non-factor outside of a YOLO bomb from Kirk against the Saints game that he made a miraculous catch on.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have much of a plan to use him other than like see if he's open on a deep route every once in a while. Like they've crafted a role for Ray McLeod, and they haven't crafted a role for Kyle Pitts. So I mean, maybe that tells you what they think of him, that they just think he's not very good, and they're just not really that interested in getting him involved. Which I guess that's an indictment too. But
it's just because that Bucs game really should have been a turning point. You know, the Thursday night game, and then the second one, because like those 2 touchdowns he had against the Bucs, those are really impressive individual plays. Like he looked like rookie year Kyle Pitts, and that should have been the springboard to get him active. Even the Seattle game, as bad as it was, I think he had like 8 catches in that game.
Yeah,
I just feel like ever since the Dallas game, like I understand he has to chip at times and he's got to play more in line, but it's just he's got to at least get like 5 targets. You know, just see what he could do. Like you can't just continuously just use him as this inline tight end and have him catch check downs. Like he's way more dynamic than that, and it's unfortunate they didn't take the momentum from that Bucs game, because I don't think they beat the Bucs without him. Like, those are fantastic plays.
I think when he's been targeted, he's been productive. It's just they just don't seem to make him an emphasized part of the offense. It doesn't seem like Kirk likes looking his way. Like Kirk doesn't have the trust in him. Kirk has an insane level of trust in Darnell Mooney and Drake London, and it's justified, but it's also leading to him just like not looking at Pitts in the flat or not looking for the check down and throwing it, into double coverage straight to a linebacker because he likes Drake London better. It's like, you got to get better play from a veteran there. You can't have that type of pick ever. Like that's the type of pick that loses you even if this was a close game, like that's the type of pick that could lose you the game. That was a scoring drive. You were at the 30 basically. And you throw that terrible interception, you can't have that. But the team is just very rigid, like schematically. Like they run one personnel grouping on offense and they run one personnel grouping on defense. I know that the Rams do that offensively, where they just like to trot out the same guys. I guess I assumed it would be more two tight ends, like with Werner and Pitts. It seems like it's more Ray, and they did that basically after week 1, and that was getting solid results, obviously. But with no Werner, I get them not wanting to go to more tight ends because they don't trust Ross Dwelly at all. And it's like, well, if you don't trust Ross Dwelly at all, like he shouldn't be on the roster. Go find a tight end that you trust to block. Like it's not that hard to find a blocking tight end. There's blocking tight ends on the street right now. Like if you don't like Ross Dwelly, get him out of there. Like you refuse to play him. So if he can't be your backup blocker, then don't keep him on the roster. Like it's just bizarre that they've held on to him and refused to use him basically. So it's just a weird situation where it feels like this team, like Zach Robinson has shown more ability to change, I think, than Jimmy Lake, like drastically more, but even he's rigid. Like the whole thing feels rigid. Like they're afraid to change something. Like they'll mess up their special juju. And I think it's actually the opposite. I think they haven't changed and teams have figured them out. The Broncos completely figured out the defense. Like it was just clear that they knew exactly what to do to destroy this defense. And like, I honestly don't even think like if the starters were out there, it would have made that much of a difference with how wide open these guys were in the scheme. And, maybe Mike Hughes and D. Alford don't make the same boneheaded zone coverage errors, but like, you're still not going to get any pressure. You're still going to miss a lot of tackles, except for Mike Hughes. He's going to make all the tackles, obviously. But so maybe that would have made the difference. He makes a tackle on a couple of those screens, and it makes the whole difference. But yeah.
And thing is with Zach Robinson, he's gonna be really tested coming up because Jesse Minter's been one of the best defensive coordinators, and Brian Flores, he's up there as the best coordinator of the year. So it's just like there's some real litmus tests coming up, and I still think he's doing a really good job. The motions, the trips, using bunches. I think it's really good in just terms of manipulating coverages. But I think there's some real predictable tendencies, and Denver caught on today. And I just at some point, can they run more play action? Like, can we just get more play action? Nice. Why is it got to be like a complete afterthought?
I think it's because Kirk Cousins can't move, man. They're like, if we make him waste time doing play action, the chances of him getting sacked go up like immeasurably.
They can't use more max protect?
Right. I guess not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough to watch sometimes. Like you can just see the sacks coming too for Kirk. Like he just, like, oh, that guy's getting past Caleb McGarry. Kirk's going down. Like, there's no way he's escaping. He can't. And that's his weakness right now. But it's sad when you expect I wasn't expecting the Falcons to win this game. I thought this was a bad matchup, especially when you see the injury report. You're like, okay, like they're probably not going to win this game. But I didn't there's no excuse for this. Like, this is just phone it in level performance. Basic zone coverage mistakes on the back end, and offense just being completely lifeless for large portions of this game, in large part due to just stupid errors. Like they were getting yardage in the first half, and they were just blowing it when they would get in scoring position. And it's like, you guys can't afford to be this sloppy. And it makes me think of what we saw. And like, I'm not trying to compare Zach Robinson to Shane Waldron in terms of their product on the field, but this coaching staff reminds me of potentially what Bears players were saying about Shane Waldron, which was they're too nice. Like, we're not really holding people accountable. We're not getting hard coaching, and nothing's really changing. I feel like this coaching staff is too nice, Alan. Like,
I would compare Jimmy Lake, not Zach Robinson.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
I think.
I mean, I don't really have a problem with what Zach Robinson has done so far. I think he's kind of done the best he can with what is a very limited quarterback, not in terms of the throws he can make, but you can't run boots. You can't run play action much. You can't really move the pocket. Like you know that he has no chance to scramble. So you're really limited with what you can
No RPOs really.
Yeah. I mean, so I think Zach Robinson has honestly called a fine offense, like probably as good as you could expect so far. Lake obviously is a different story, so maybe Zach Robinson's not the one to talk about. But I mean, maybe it's Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake. Like it's in these post game. Maybe they're secretly lighting up the team behind closed doors. But these press conferences, it's like, it's fine. This game doesn't define us. You know, we're gonna be fine. Everything's fine. It's not fine. You just lost 38-6. Can I see some goddamn emotion? Like, can I see you get upset? Call somebody out. Like, you know, I don't need you to name names or be like, oh yeah, like the defense screwed up. You know, this, like, I don't need you to like be like, oh yeah, this one player was bad today. Like that's unprofessional. We're not asking for that, but it's like, show some emotion. I mean, it feels so, I don't know, vapid or something. Like it's just like we're getting lip service about the state of this team. We can all see what's going on here. Like you'd be justified in being angry, and fans aren't going to be upset at you telling the truth about the state of this team, which is that it's falling apart. Like you've outrun the South. Like you fell over. You're not running anymore, man. You got to pick yourself up off the ground before you get lapped. So I mean, I don't know how. That's how I feel about what we're seeing publicly from this team, which is they're unfazed. And it's like, you should get a little phased. Like maybe you should get a little phased at this point because you're 6-5 with 2 playoff bound teams coming up and a chance to be 6-7 before you face another cupcake game. And it's like, it's not good enough. Like I need somebody's got to light a fire under somebody's ass at this point. Like we don't have a lot of time to mess around here. Like your cushion's all but gone already.
And just the repetitive mistakes, like the things you see every week. Like, you know, what answers are going to do against the run? Like, are they going to play more crowded boxes? Are they going to utilize different personnel? It just seems every week teams are just finding open gaps. You know, linebackers going the wrong direction, defensive linemen not winning up front or just getting blown up on double teams. It's so easy. Like in between the numbers, it's so easy to get yards on this team. You go outside the numbers, okay, the corners might make a play or something might happen, but anything in between the numbers is just guaranteed 6 yards at this point. Doesn't matter what the other team does. And it's just, you can't function like this. And look, man, Raheem Morris, he came as a defensive guy. There's got to be answers because I would say, like we talked about since, the first Saints game was fun, but that Bucs game, since Thursday night against that Bucs game, it's hard to find many positives about this defense outside the Dallas game and a couple of second halves against the Saints and Panthers, I guess.
Yeah. It's just like I need more edge. Like that was the one thing. Like Ryan Nielsen's defense didn't always like play great. Like especially late in the season, they got their ass kicked. But those guys they played with edge, man. Like you got to have that edge in the NFL. You can't be a soft team. Like other teams smell blood in the water against teams like that. You know.
Like you look at guys like it was Onyemata, Ellis, Landman, Campbell. I thought there was even good moments from like a Kadavia Street. Ebiketie was starting to come on here. Bud Dupree would contribute. Like it was not a talented group at all, but it just seemed like they were always ready to battle. They would hold their blocks. You know, there was times where they would actually win one-on-one. Like it was just a unit where you weren't going to get free yards all the time. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to run a counter here, and now like it's a guarantee 8 to 10 yards. Like that's what felt like today. Javonte Williams could just get to the second level with these. Last year wasn't like that. Like this team would just challenge teams, and now it's just everything's uncontested unless we saw it with Jesse Bates. So that's like the most frustrating thing. Is like teams don't really. There's no resistance. It's just we could play our style, and the team's not gonna really do about it unless anything to do about it unless we make a mistake or Jesse Bates does something heroic, or if we throw it in AJ Terrell's direction, it could get picked off.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like the healthy secondary was kind of holding this whole shit show together. I think with those guys out, it's like it's like disaster level defense, which is crazy to think about because I don't think people look at like the Alford and Mike Hughes as like these linchpin level players. But like I think it's true. Like those guys would usually do the right thing and would make plays. And I think you just got to be like, I love Clark Phillips. I love what we saw from him like in spurts, but as a starter, it's just a lot of mistakes. I thought the move to more zone coverage would help him out. And obviously he's still a second year player. So there's time, but right now, he looks like a backup level corner. Kevin King was getting worked. Like, what is their obsession with Kevin King, man? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, this guy, like, he looked okay in the preseason. It's like, okay, sure, keep him on the roster as like a reclamation project. But like, we've seen more of Natrone Brooks in like a handful of snaps than we've seen Kevin King all season. Like, I was like, we should see Natrone Brooks playing the nickel, right? Like, that's what he played in college, and he's good at it. Like, he's actually shown some life there. Kevin King is. They got him as like this hybrid safety, and he's been extremely shaky when he's had to play. Like, we need to see Natrone Brooks more. Like, that guy looks like he wants to be there. Like, I mean, he took a bad angle on Marvin Mims, but like, he was close to making a play. And that's more than I can say for a lot of these guys. I mean, at least he was sprinting back there to try to make a play. So, we obviously didn't see a whole lot from the front seven. Dorless had a quiet day in his debut. I mean, everyone, like, I don't blame him. It's just like, not really anyone was getting much success up front. Zach Harrison has a couple great plays and then hurts his shoulder. So great, fantastic. Like, I still think one of the biggest mistakes of the offseason was converting him off of edge, knowing that you have a million interior players and no edge rushers, and you take him and try to convert him to an interior pass rusher. It's like, man, you guys just, like, do you just not understand your roster? Like, oh yeah, wait.
And he was ascending last year. Like, that
Yes.
last month of the year, he was like very good in base, and he would contribute as a pass rusher. Like, he easily could have been one of your edge setting defenders on rundowns. Like, I know they don't play base at this point, but still, like, you could have rotated him there. And even at 270 pounds, he could be somewhat of a threat. Like, just because he's not the most agile person, he's not someone who's going to win this first step, but still, like, he plays with great pad level, knows how to use his hands. Like, he's a good player. And it's just, you made him gain 25 pounds, and now he just is in this overinflated rotation where you're trying to fit 6 guys in. And what's it doing?
Yeah. No, it's basically making it so that nobody's getting any chemistry with each other. It feels like everyone's just kind of slopped in there together. Like, it's this deep rotation, but none of them are making impact plays. Like, last year, the rotation was very simple, right? It was like Grady and Grady and Onyemata as much as we can, and then we'll rotate some other guys in if we have to. And it worked, obviously, until they got hurt. And those guys have never been the same, unfortunately, since then. But you have to think like the scheme they were running was just more effective for these guys too. Like, like Jarrett's a penetration player. Like, let him do that. It's sad that, like, I think our best interior player is Eddie Goldman, who they like basically refused to play for the entire middle portion of the season, giving him like 3 snaps a game. He finally gets back out there. It's like, oh wow, a big nose tackle. Who would have thought that could help your run defense? It's, man, like, Lake is so rigid with his defense. Like, there's a reason nobody just plays the same personnel package on defense every snap. Like, you can't just play nickel. Like, it's too easy to take advantage of. Like, sometimes you gotta roll out a base package. Sometimes you gotta roll out dime. Like, I don't know, end of half situations when it's obvious passing downs, and you don't need Nate goddamn Landman trying to run 30 yards downfield to cover a passing route. Like, this is not rocket science. Like, any idiot with a clipboard could call a better end of half strategy than putting 2 linebackers who can't cover on the field. Like, if they want to run the ball, let them run the ball. Let them run the ball. They'll tackle them after 10 yards. They'll waste time. You don't need your linebackers on the field. Like, it's just, I mean, maybe Fred Warner. If you got Fred Warner out there, sure, put him out there. Yeah, sure, there we go. But like, it's,
I like
the rigidity is just, it's weird.
I remember Robert Mays was talking about this. He was when previewing the NFC South of the year. I think Raheem Morris with the Rams last year, they put like 18% dime. I am surprised we haven't seen more dime, because I just don't know how you can watch these linebackers play and be like, we need both these guys on the field on pass.
We need these guys out here. This is our best. This is the best that we got. Yeah. No. I mean, I get it this week. Like, you just don't have the personnel to play dime. Like, even if you wanted to, you lose a cornerback on the first series. Like, okay, sure, but that doesn't excuse it the rest of the season. So
like I know he was injured, and he's been kind of injured for not large portions, but we haven't seen him enough. And I know he was terrible when he against the Bucks coming in injury relief duty, but Antonio Hamilton was good for the Cardinals last year. I have a hard time believing he can't play some sort of role, even if it's just in dime. Like, why can't he potentially do something? Like, give him maybe 8 to 10 snaps depending on how the game flow is. because I'd rather trust him in coverage. Like we've seen teams play more dime. I think the Chiefs actually lead the league in dime, and the Chiefs defense speaks for itself on how good it is. Like it could be a useful thing. Like you just got to change up your looks more. Like the idea of just playing nickel, 70-80% of the time, it's just, what are we getting out of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's too predictable. It's too easy to exploit. And they run they do run a variety of coverages, but most of the time it's just you're giving up basically free releases at the line and you're letting them run any route combinations they want and they're just getting open like easily. And I get it's this whole bend don't break crap, but like it's not working for you. Like it's one thing if your guys are great tacklers and they're going to rally to that ball and make those tackles. We've seen that style work for teams. It has worked in the past. These guys suck at tackling. Like this is one of the worst tackling defenses I've ever seen. On screens, it's like 7 guys flying at the feet of the guy with the ball and they all miss. Like this is the worst screen defending team I've ever seen. Like it's like an utter embarrassment every time trying to like every person loses their matchup. Anyone who gets a blocker on them just gets pancaked and everybody else like is just flying at feet and missing tackles. I mean, it's damn.
Sean Payton must have thought it was 2009 today, just dialing up screens, walking into the end zone. Like it was just that easy. And also, I bet you when it comes to them trying to get creative, like I don't even like when they run bear fronts. Like they'll have like whether it's Goldman, Jaron, Yamada, maybe be a Graham or Harrison in there, but like it may just because of personal, but like obviously have no edge, nothing coming off the edge. But like, even when they run the bear fronts, like teams just run through that and they get to the second level with these. So it's just, man, I really hate to say this, but like this defense, it just feels hopeless. Like, unless Troy Anderson comes back and plays at the level he did against the Saints, where to me he was like the best player on the field at times, like and then Bates and then Terrell, but like you're really just relying on no names and star players to be productive because you're not getting anything out of your scheme and you don't really have any emerging contributors outside of Zach Harrison and James Smith-Williams here and there, and those guys don't play enough. So it's just I don't see much solutions other than like Troy Anderson be the savior and hope your stars do enough that maybe you get a late season revival out of Onyemata or Jarrett.
Yeah, no, I think unfortunately this is a total teardown on defense. Like obviously I'm not talking about getting rid of your rookies or your guys on rookie contracts, but like they're going to tear down all these veterans and ship them out. And it's going to mean we're going to have to say goodbye to a lot of guys that have been long-term contributors, but and this defense is this is going to rely on like a Rams-esque 2023 Rams-esque like sort of miraculous turnaround.
Great
with
comparison.
Like a bunch of rookies, but they don't have any picks, so that's going to be hard to pull off, right? They only got 4 picks, and only 2 of them in the top 100. So, it's going to be tough, obviously, to pull off that kind of miracle with that stuff. But, this team is embarrassing right now, and this is exactly what I felt bad. Like we talked about it on earlier shows. It's like they're winning, but like they should be blowing out this Panthers team. They shouldn't be like letting the Cowboys within a score. They should be putting their foot on their throat and running away with this game. That team is a joke, a complete joke, and they weren't able to put them away until late in the game. This is all symptoms of what we saw tonight. This team is just not very good, Alan. They're exceedingly average. The offense is inconsistent, and the defense apparently is a couple injuries away from being the worst defense in the league or close to it. So it's like, maybe I'm a hater. Call me a hater. I don't care. Like this team is not very good. This team is not very good.
I mean, we just watched them get the game was over in the third quarter. If you're a team that has aspirations to play football in January, like I don't care who the opponent is. The game can't be over by the third quarter. Like, think about that. Like we haven't mentioned his name yet. Michael Penix played a significant amount of snaps.
Threw a dime to Casey Washington. I hope Casey Washington's okay. He almost came down with that.
That pushes to him. Yeah. But it's just the fact that we've had games this season where Michael Penix is playing. It speaks volumes of where this team has been at. So
I think if you had told people that he was going to play, it was like, oh well, they're blowing teams out. No, they're getting blown out. Like
exactly.
Yeah. So, good teams don't get blown out like this. It just doesn't happen. Like, I mean, and that's why, the Bucs got blown out by this Broncos team too. Like, I mean, it did happen to them, but like, this team, they're not in a good place. They don't have a significant lead over this division anymore. They've pissed that away over the last 2 weeks. And the Bucs have a drastically easier schedule the rest of the way. Yeah. The Bucs might lose one more game. So that means they'll have 10 wins. If they don't have a blunder and they just lose to the Chargers, they'll finish with 10 wins. The Falcons have to beat either the Chargers, Vikings, or Commanders to have a chance at 10 wins. The other 3 games, Giants, Raiders, Panthers, okay, they're probably going to beat those teams. Like, more than likely, the Falcons are going to beat those teams. That's why I'm saying they're probably going to get 9 wins because, like, as bad as the Falcons have, did you see the Giants last week? I mean, that team is
they've
extremely
been
bad.
broken.
Yeah, they're broken. Andrew Thomas was the complete death knell for that team. They can't pass protect now to save their lives. The Raiders are just very bad, and the Panthers are slightly spicier, but like, I mean, that team, you should still beat that team. Let's be honest.
Thankfully for the Panthers, they have a defense that will hold the throne for being the worst defense in the league, because I don't think any defense can be worse than the Panthers. Yeah. But yeah, no, you make a very valid point. That's why I think the only positive coming out of this game, besides Young Wei-Koo doing his thing, by parties for butchering his name. Sometimes I get too excited, but it's Young Wei-Koo. Give the legend his respect. But the only thing I'll say is just the fact that I think it's a good thing, of course, with the bye week. But look, the fact that they got 2 playoff teams come up, we're really going to see what this team is made of. Like, right now, things are looking ugly, but they have 2 opportunities where they can make a statement and show, we're really worthy of being a playoff team once and for all.
Yeah.
And look, the Chargers and Vikings are very impressive. I think they have excellent coaching staffs. They have clear strengths on both sides of the ball, but they both have their flaws as well. Not as glaring as the Falcons, but they are beatable. Sam Darnold could throw away a game. The Chargers' skill position players are one of the worst of the league. And I do think their defense has feast on bad offenses. I'm very curious. They play the Bengals in a few minutes. I'm very curious to see how they're looking against Cincinnati and against Baltimore next week. So these games are still winnable. Like, as gloomy as things look right now, the Falcons really think they're as good as they anticipated, then at least win one of the next 2 games, especially come off a bye week.
Yeah. They will have an opportunity to change. They will have an opportunity to change the narrative coming out of the bye.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to sit with this, and we're going to have to talk about how lifeless this team looked over the past 2 weeks. Like, they asked for this. They're going to get reamed, and rightfully so, over the next 2 weeks. Like, because there's no more games. Like, yep. And like, I hope this wakes this team up, because I think they got way too high on themselves at 6-3. They were like, man, we're so good. Like, we're outrunning the South. We're doing it. Like, you can't ever think like that in the NFL, because you're 2 games away from 6-5 and the world's falling down all around you. Like, you haven't earned the right to think that you're all that. You haven't earned the right to think that you're a good football team until you make the playoffs. You haven't made the playoffs since 2017. I don't want to hear anything about, like, that's why I don't like the whole outrun the South motto, because that assumes that you're good enough to just be in the lead. Like, I think, like, that's an erroneous assumption. Like, you need to earn the right to call yourself the NFC South frontrunner, and like, beating up on a bad division doesn't fill me with confidence. Like, you're still going to have to beat Tampa Bay. Like, you're still going to have to hope Tampa Bay stumbles to win this division, more than likely, because I'm not sure they get more than 9 wins. I think they're going to get 9, but that 10th one's going to be problematic if they can't beat these. Like, realistically, are they beating the Commanders? Hell no. Like, they have a chance against the Chargers coming off the bye, and the Vikings have shown some cracks, so maybe you can steal a win there. But I guess we're praying for the Kingsbury collapse. We're praying for the Kingsbury collapse. Yeah.
That Commanders game is very far away. Let's give that time. That's not for like another 6 weeks. So, but. Yeah, I'm with you with the Chargers Vikings. That's what we're going to have to watch closely. And they got the opportunities there, but I just, whatever they can figure out defensively, and then just trying to find a better consistent flow with the run game. Like, 2 players I think we're really going to watch closely when they come back: Drew Dalman and Troy Anderson. I think if this team can be transformed, I know it sounds great, like an off-ball linebacker or center, how much can they really change a team? I think those 2 could do, I don't say work wonders, but I think they can elevate both units quite substantially if they play up to the level.
Yeah, no, I'll throw out one draft take for you. Jahdae Barron from Texas.
Okay.
They could use an impact nickel safety like guy. I love Jahdae Barron. And if they were still picking at the end of the first round, ish, because they do make the playoffs, that's kind of his range. So that's my early take is they're not going to take a pass rusher. They'll take like a nickel core. But Janae Barron is very good. And like by the time you get to pick 27 or whatever they're picking, hopefully there's not going to be any edge rushers left. Sorry to break it to you guys.
Well, drafting a first round from Texas, it's worked out.
Yeah. It so far, like that's been the most successful one. So clearly that they should just go back to the well on that one. But all right, let's get to these last questions, then we'll wrap up here. We spent entirely too much time talking about this trash can game, but it's because we enjoy talking to you guys. We enjoy hanging out with you guys. It's not the game.
And we're trying to inject some hope about the future because look, next week's the bye week. We're gonna enjoy our time away, so we want to come here and just do like 40 minutes. So let's actually give you guys some content before we could enjoy the bye week and Thanksgiving as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be taking off mostly Thanksgiving week, so I'll still be recording next week, but I'm taking my bye week late, because that's when it worked out for me. But yeah, next week, definitely take some time, get some space from this team. Come back and watch the couple shows we're going to have still, definitely do that. But other than that, relax. Definitely make time for the podcast and the episodes. But you could get them on your phone, on the audio and live on YouTube. So, a lot of options there. We got Sour Pickle with another $5. Thank you, Sour Pickle. Great name for sure.
Classic.
It says, hate to say it, but I think we're kind of showing what kind of team we really are. I mean, yeah, I don't think they're this bad, to be honest. Like, I don't really think this is a 38-6 weekly team, but I think this shows that like they can be outcoached and outclassed by teams that can figure them out, especially with the injuries they have right now. And we'll have to pray that gets better after the bye, because if they're down these guys going forward, and apparently Darnell Mooney's injury is minor, according to him, that it was precautionary. They didn't put him back in the game because the game is over. So
that's big. They desperately and so you talk about coaching, like you're going against Harbaugh and O'Connell the next two games. Like I don't think people realize how good the Chargers and the Vikings coaching says are. I think if you look at how both those teams are successful, if you made a list, like coaching's probably top 3 for both.
Yeah. So, we'll hope that they can get healthier and just pick themselves up a little bit, dust themselves off, and figure out what the hell is going wrong here and do better. Like they got to make some changes defensively. They can't keep trotting this scheme out there and thinking it's going to work. It's clearly not going to work. And like, it's just they keep coming back to this like, oh, well, we're doing good in the second half. They're not making adjustments. They're just playing better in the second half. I can't explain it to you. That's just what's happening. Like, so if they can just play better in the first half, then maybe they don't need to change anything. But unfortunately, like, it's just maybe teams are assuming they'll make adjustments and then they come out there doing the exact same thing and it catches them off guard. I mean, I don't know. But
and like the second half stuff, like, okay, the Thursday night game against Tampa, Carolina, last week against New Orleans. Besides that, like against the Eagles,
they should have given up a huge touchdown to Kamara last week, and he just dropped it. So I mean, maybe I was like, guys, maybe calm down on how good the defense played. So
you look at the second half, like the Bucks, the second Bucks game, they got lit up. Dallas came back a little bit. It wasn't really competitive, but we saw the Seattle game. It's just like, okay, there's still times that they did decent the first game of the Saints, but like let's not like talk about how this team week in, week out adjusts in the second half. Like, no, they still get lit up more times than not.
Yeah.
So, like they're banking on their NFC South success as them being like this great second half defense. Like, okay, you did it in a big spot Thursday night against the Bucks. That was impressive. Last week against the Saints, the Panthers, you really gonna brag about that?
No, it's like 4 of your 6 wins have come against the NFC South. Like, you're almost out of NFC South teams to beat up on. You got one more. Yeah. Like, so that's not going to carry you the rest of the way. You're going to have to learn how to beat other teams. Like
they get one more freebie from the NFC East, though. The NFC East has been good to them. If they could sweep the NFC East, hey, that would be massive.
Yes, that would be nice. All right, let me get to the rest of these guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate you. We got Sour Pickle again. Sour Pickle just really coming correct tonight. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. It says, when we lost to the Saints last week, I figured this was going to be tough. Makes you think any game can go like this. Any team can be in it with us. Yeah, the Falcons play 1-score games or get blown out. That's kind of their, ethos. I don't love that, but that's kind of where they are right now, unfortunately. We got Ian McCluskey with the $5. Let's talk about that Penix throw in the fourth quarter at that 9-minute mark. It's nice to see a ball with some real zip on it. Yeah, I mean, Cousins throws a beautiful deep ball. Like, that is his biggest strength. Like, those sideline throws, he's killer. Like, I mean, that one to Casey Washington, like, it was a little bit off. You know, I'm not sure if that was Washington was just a step behind on his route or if that was overthrown. I mean, I'd have to watch the all-22 to really see. Maybe he got slowed up by the defender slightly. But that was, like, almost perfect placement. And, like, yeah, tons, you know, he gets that ball out there. He doesn't need as much time to wind up for that type of throw as Cousins does. So, and you could see it, like, you know, Penix was able to kind of evade a bad sack and get back close to the line of scrimmage, whereas, you know, Kirk would have just taken that sack, obviously. So that's some of the things that he does well that were on display. He's got a killer arm. I do think there was one play, and I'll have to go back and watch, where he kind of missed a guy that was coming open and kind of tucked the ball a little too early. But, like, you know, I think everything we've seen so far from Penix, which is very little in the regular season, is like, he looks like what you would expect. Like, this is a guy that I think has a high potential in the NFL. And I know there was a lot of people like, oh, this Penix pick was a terrible pick. You know, like, this is just more proof that they needed to draft, like, a defensive player. It's like, yeah, like, that, like, I ultimately, like, if you want to get on Terry Fontenot about all, like, many issues, that's fine. I think the Penix pick is probably not one that we're going to look at as being a bad decision, because I think more and more I feel vindicated in my take that they're not really that, like, they're not trying to win now. Like, I mean, the Judon pick, I think, threw a lot of us off, because it's like, oh, well, maybe they are, but, like, they didn't really push it at all at the trade deadline. And I think they were right not to, because ultimately, like, I think this defense is not a player away. I think this team is not that close to being a contender. I think they rightly thought they could compete for the NFC South in this division, which is just terrible. But, like, I think they were right to say, like, we probably shouldn't invest that much in trying to win in 2024, because the ceiling of this team is just not that high. Like, the defense is really far away, is what it feels like to me.
It's just playoff football. That's it. It's been so long. You saw the graphic today, because Falcons and Broncos are 2 of the 4 teams that haven't made the playoffs since in the 2020 era. So I think all this was just like, okay, we saw last year. If they had a quarterback, they'd probably win the NFC South. Let's just get the quarterback and take it from there. But yeah, this team's ways away from competing with the likes of Detroit and Green Bay.
Yeah. So they're just not on that level, and I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, a lot of people are, like, adamant that this team was trying to win now still, but, like, look at like, I'm just telling you guys, this team's like, they're lying to you with their words. The Falcons aren't the only team to do this, by the way. Everyone does this. They look at their actions, right? They didn't really maximize their cap space. They drafted a bunch of guys that are going to sit, like even though Rook was playing, like, he's a project player. Like, this is a guy that's probably going to be a year 3 hit type of guy. Now, the upside, obviously, of Rook, and why I was, like, happy to draft him in that range, I was less happy, obviously, about the trade up, is because he has traits that could make him, like, an all-pro level talent if he can get all of the you know, sort of training and background as a pass rusher that he needs to take advantage. You know, and Dorless too. Like, Dorless, they drafted Dorless. He wasn't going to play unless 3 or 4 injuries happened. Well, they've happened now, so he's on the field, but, like, they were never intending to play him, it seems. You know, like, I think Braylon Trice was the one they actually wanted to play, and unfortunately, you know, tore an ACL. So, like, that, but that's not Fontenot's fault that he tore his ACL. Like, I mean, I think that was a good pick. It's just, you know, like, they put a large bet on Matt Judon coming in and saving the pass rush. And I think it was the best bet. And it failed miserably. Matt Judon's almost unplayable. Like, he did have a couple plays in this game where I was like, wow, that was actually decent. And then he does something like getting absolutely plastered by a fullback. And it's like, bro, you can't do that. You can't do that as an edge rusher in the NFL. I can't take you seriously. I cannot take you seriously.
So finesse.
Yeah. Yes. Like, it's like, you're like 280 pounds, and this, like, 230-pound fullback just blew you off the line of scrimmage. Like, that's effort. Like, I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. There's no way that 230-pound fullback has any strength advantage over you. That's want to. He wanted to give you that hit. You didn't really want to take that hit, and you got blown off the ball. That's embarrassing. And then we saw him, like, bull rush McGlinchey into the quarterback for a near sack, and it's like, so like, like, what is it? What is it with you, Judon? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. Like,
there's just no juice to it. Like you watch him rush, it's just he's there's no get off. It's just slow. He doesn't really use his hands well. Like I get a lot of Ray Edwards vibes watching him, and it's very unfortunate. And I don't like using that player's name, but it really reminds you of Ray Edwards, where the motor isn't there, and you're just questioning why he's getting snaps at this point because he's just offering nothing. Like we were joking earlier in the year, like Lorenzo Carter's offering nothing the first few weeks. Matthew Judon's the equivalent of that now.
Yeah. So, like, this is a longer term plan than I think most people want to admit. And it's going to lead to this team kind of looking like garbage defensively, I think, for large portions this year. Like, this was always going to be a thin team depth-wise, like relying on a couple stars on defense to kind of carry it. And unfortunately, one of the stars in Judon is not starter material. Like, he's not even starter material. So that they lost that bet big time. And I think that's sort of the story of why this defense is so bad pass rushing. They were depending on him to be their pass rush. Like that they could trust Judon to get them 15 sacks, and maybe Ebiketie could play off of Judon's success and have some, stuff. Instead, it's like Judon is almost unplayable. And it's sad because he was one of the most fun guys to watch, I think, as an edge rusher the last couple of years. Like he would just find ways to get sacks. And it's just
that first year in New England. Like I remember that Thursday night game. Arthur Smith's first year was Falcons, Patriots, and Falcons got shut out. Like it was like 25-0. Judon was just everywhere in that game. And granted it was 3 years ago, but like he was still really good in 2022.
Yes.
And then he gets injured in week 3 last year. So it's like,
yeah, and he had
the resume. That's why, like, look, we'll all take the L for this one. Like, there was plenty of reasons from watching him why we were so enthusiastic because I was jumping for joy. I remember it was like 7 o'clock on a summer night. It was Wednesday. And it's just like, okay, wow, they finally made the proactive move. So we had every reason to be happy about, but like, look, we got to evaluate what we see, and at this point, just like you question why he's on the field because he's just offering nothing.
And I don't know if it's age has caught up with them. I don't know if it's effort level. It kind of seems like both to me. But I'm not on the practice field. I'll let the coaches make that determination. But whatever it is, it ain't good enough. I can tell you that. So
because we could only defend players for so long. Like we were defending Nate Landman, we're defending Judon, but time goes on, no progress is being made. Now losses are mounting. Players got to be held accountable. So we got to critique them.
Yep, that is what it is. All right, we got Sour Pickle again with the $10. Thank you, man. Appreciate you. It says, hate to say it, I'm thinking it might have been a mistake to get Cousins. He just can't move, man. He's a liability. I really like him, but like, if you go with Penix, maybe you could spend more on the defense. I mean, this is going to be something that's debated for a while. I really don't think like Cousins is the problem. I think this is just what you have to deal with Cousins, is like that he just can't really move. And that's why I think it was especially smart that they drafted Penix, because there's going to be an expiration date on this Cousins thing. Like, and I think Cousins is definitely good enough to get you to the playoffs. But as we saw with the Vikings, like when you go up against these great defenses that you're going to see in the playoffs and they can get pressure, he can't really deal with it. How he deals with it is that he just gets the ball out. But as you can see, like when he has to make that quick decision, sometimes he's going to throw a pick, and that can be absolutely devastating against, a good team in the playoffs. So I think Cousins is like right on the cusp of being a top 10 quarterback. I think he was on a heater. Now he's kind of slowed down a bit. I think he's in that 10 to 15 range, which is just so drastically better than anything the Falcons. Like this Falcons team with Desmond Ritter, like let's not even talk about how many games they would have won. Like please, 2 wins.
We might have to talk about Desmond Ritter in a month with the Raiders game.
Yeah, let's 2 wins they'd have. Like 2 wins. So, they needed to get someone like Cousins here. Maybe Penix comes in and lights it up as a rookie. They clearly didn't want to put that on him, and they also didn't want to risk like missing out on a quarterback in the draft. And it's like, I get it. It's like you get both of them, and then it looks kind of silly. But teams that wait on quarterback typically get burned. Obviously, didn't happen to them. But it does, like, if it, like, think about how different it would be going into draft night if teams knew the Falcons wanted a quarterback, right? Like, everything changes. Teams are thinking about maneuvering in front of the Falcons. They're wondering if the Falcons are going to try to come up to get, Drake May or somebody else at the top. Like the Vikings are potentially trying to get in front of the Falcons at 8 because they're worried they might take McCarthy or whatever it is. Like, it changes everything. So you can't just remove one thing from the equation and then just say the other thing happens. Like it's more complicated than that. And the Cousins signing at the very least gave them complete smokescreen cover to draft Michael Penix with absolutely no resistance from any other team. So, if that was part of the reason, then I guess you have to tip your cap. But I just think like Cousins isn't playing flawless football, but he's very far from like the primary problem with this Falcons team. I mean, you could probably get like 30 things down before you get to Kirk Cousins' immobility as like a significant problem. So we got a lot of things to get to before we start questioning whether Cousins was a good decision. But we got George Costanza with another 2. Thank you, George. He says, just for frame of reference, Jonnu Smith had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns today, which almost as many touchdowns as Pitts on the season. We cut the wrong tight end. Yeah.
Did you see that? Did you see the touchdown? Did you see the coverage on those touchdowns?
If Pitts gets that coverage, I would love that. But no, they won't leave Pitts that uncovered apparently. So, but yeah. He also says hashtag bring back tank shots. I think it's actually against the terms of service for me to do tank shots and like collect donations for them. So if we do tank shots again, I'm gonna have to like investigate whether or not like that's legal on YouTube for me to do that. That's why I stopped them. I enjoyed the tank shots, but my liver did not, and also I think it might be against terms of service. So that's why we don't do tank shots anymore. Multiple facets, but they were fun, George. That was the Wild West days. But hopefully we don't have to start tanking talk until late December. That would be great if we could avoid that. We got Furball with the $10. What's up? Says, my issue is Bates and Simmons playing way off coverage. And what's your thoughts on that moving forward? I just don't know where to go from here with the performance. Like, I mean, what's the fix? Man, I think we've tried to explain it as best we can. Yeah, like, I think you got to get more aggressive with your safeties, give them chances to make plays. Same thing with your corners. Like, these are, like, Clark Phillips was a ball hawk in college. Like, give that man a chance to get his hands on the football. Don't play these guys so far off. Like, if you give up big plays, you're giving up big plays now playing this soft coverage. Like, you might as well play closer to the line of scrimmage and maybe you can impact the short throws. I mean, like, as it is right now, you're playing terribly. So, what do you have to lose?
You saw it against the Panthers. Great instincts on the pick. He read the route perfectly, anticipated out, and he jumped on it. So, like, Clark Phillips has good instincts. He's a intelligent player. Just got put together.
Mm-hmm. All right, 2 more. We got George saying at the post-game pressure, this possibly uttered at the post-game presser. Coach, how do you feel about the execution today? I'm in favor of it, probably. No, I don't think he's going to say that. Although I was very concerned by the post-game comment of, I think he was asked he said something about like, we're going to play a lot of games like this, referring to the Saints game. And I was like, what? No, like, please don't. Like, what the hell are you talking about? You're going to play a lot of games like that. You're going to miss 3 field goals and look outmatched on both sides of the football for large portions of that game and just shoot yourself in the foot. Like, I hope to God you're not going to play a lot of games like that. So that was a concerning statement. I'm sure that's not what he meant, but that is what he said. So I think he meant close games.
Yeah,
but
I would hope so.
But like, I don't want you to play any games like that. And I hope you're not planning to just play close games. Like, you should be planning to beat the hell out of teams. So if you're planning to play close games, I guess this is all making a lot more sense. But yeah. And then we got a final one from Ian McCluskey with the $10. Says, say what you want about Arthur Smith, but he usually always had his teams ready to fight every game with far less talent. Can't really say that about Raheem. I'm going to disagree with you there. I think you're forgetting a lot of Arthur Smith games.
2023 Arthur Smith.
Yeah, I think you're forgetting a lot of Arthur Smith games that looked like they weren't necessarily blowouts like this. I mean, I don't know, the end of 2023 looked like this, but Raheem's not like, I mean, Raheem's got a winning record right now, so he's got that, but I mean, they've got their share of issues, but no, I don't think I would look favorably on Arthur Smith's head coaching tenure at this point.
I don't think you could compare the first 2 years of Arthur Smith to this team, because those first 2 years, they were so talent deprived. Like, they were trying to rebuild the Tom Mitchell, Dan Quinn mess. So if you want to look at last year, I'm like, go watch that 3-game losing streak against the Vikings, Titans, and Cardinals. Some of the most appalling performances you could see. So yeah, I don't know. I don't like comparing the two, but it's just like, there's more than you could see from Arthur Smith teams where they didn't look like they had a plan, and potentially that passing game was complete. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, you watch the Falcons try to pass the ball last year to this year, it's just it's like a different sports. So that kind of ends the conversation there for me.
Yeah.
And then when you see how much better Bijan Robinson looks this year.
Yeah, I think there's going to be, this year I think is sort of a reset year for them, and if they can make the playoffs, like that's the expectation. Obviously, you were 6-3, like you have to make the playoffs. Like I'm sorry, like we can't allow them to get out of that by collapsing. But like other than that, you shouldn't really have any expectations for this team. I think it's clear that they're very, very average, and they just don't really have any teeth on defense, and the offense can play really well, or it can just look like this, where they just kind of are out of sync and mistake prone, and Kirk Cousins starts pressing and it's all over. So they've got the potential to get 10 wins. I think still 10 wins is probably what you're looking at. I think they'll have 9 no matter what, as long as they beat the teams they should beat. But if they want to make the playoffs, they're going to have to find ways to beat the other teams. At least one of them. 2 if they want to be safe. 10 wins should get you there. Like the Bucs can lose 1 game and still get 10 wins. So you'd think, the Bucs probably aren't winning out, but you got to win 4 more, out of your last 7. So can you do it? Can you do it? That is the question. 4 more, I guess, out of your last 6. So, not a lot of room for error now. You blew that Saints game. That was your easy ticket, and it's gone. You blew the easy ticket, so now you got to win a hard one. So let's hope they can do it. Go 4-2 the rest of the way, or kiss that playoff spot goodbye. Because those Bucs, I don't think those Bucs are winning less than. I think they're probably going to win 10 games. I think the Falcons would probably need a minor miracle to have them win only 9. So, but that's not out of the question. They could blow a game and then they'd be at 9 wins. So that could happen, and the Falcons could still win because they have the tiebreaker. That would probably be the kind of encapsulation of this season. But yeah.
Nice Jameis revenge game. There's still another Saints Bucs game on the docket.
Yeah, there we go. So we'll see. But guys, thank you so much for joining us here on the Falcons Broncos post game show.
Hold on. I just realized Jameis is on the Browns, not the Saints.
Yeah, he's on the Browns. I wasn't going to correct you, but yeah.
Folks, sorry, man. It's been a long day.
We're 90 minutes in. Okay, our references are not on point anymore. But
Derek Carr against the Bucs. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah. Let's see it. Let's see the Saints take down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just to screw them over. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Check out the Patreons, patreon.com/Falcoholic Check out the channel memberships on YouTube if you're more of a video enjoyer. Leave us that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. We'll be back for Tuesday takes with Trayshawn early in the week, and we will have a Falcoholic Live for you on Wednesday, but then no late week show because there's no game to preview. But then we'll be back next week with a Tuesday takes and a game preview, but no Wednesday show because the day before Thanksgiving, I know people are going to be busy, so we probably won't be live that night. But we will be back with a lot more shows before we get into next week and kind of just breaking down where this team is and what the hell they do going forward to get back on the horse and get back in the driver's seat in this NFC South, because they've more or less blown their cushion at this point. So we'll hope they can get it back over the next few weeks. Got to win some tough games. So,
Can I plug one thing?
Absolutely. Go for it.
I will be on the Locked On Falcons show this week. Perfect timing. Aaron Freeman. We're going to be there.
Yeah, there we go.
Takes will be unleashed some more.
There we go. If you need more takes on this game, I wouldn't blame you if you don't, but if you do, you definitely go check out Alan's appearance in the Locked On podcast. Guys, thanks again for joining us. We will see you next time on the Falcoholic Live. Until then, enjoy the rest of your football Sunday. We will see you next week. Enjoy the bye week. Disconnect from this team. Still watch the shows, but otherwise disconnect from this team. Take a break because you don't need to stress about this team on the week off. It's not worth it. It's not worth your energy. So until next time, guys.